Welcome, everyone, to Black Men Speak. I'm your co host, the J.R. Stewart.
And I'm your co-host, the Tommy D. Duncan III, otherwise known as TD3 Jimmy. It is the first Wednesday of 2024, January the 3rd. And Jimmy, if it is Wednesday night, it is still.
It's certainly Black Men Speak. So let's give a big shout out to Liquid for providing our theme music. And if you haven't already, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and spread the word. Not necessarily in that order, but make sure you get all three done. And with that being said, Tom, we have a jam-packed show tonight, so let's do what we do best.
All right, Jimmy, I am excited about tonight's show. I'm excited about the new year, Jimmy. And we're going to go ahead and get this thing on and popping. Jimmy, we're going to start out with a couple of acknowledgments, Jimmy. Of course, we start out with our birthdays, but prior to that, Jimmy, we lost a couple of people that we do need to take a few minutes to acknowledge that happened right towards the end of the year that we did miss. But we want to make sure that we give some shine to those who have transitioned to the realm of ancestry, Jimmy. And the first and foremost, we will start out being from Texas. You know, this is a face that practically everybody knows, especially if you're from the North Texas area. The great and hallowed Eddie Bernice Johnson, who has been in public service in the state of Texas, Jimmy,
very long time,
Jimmy, served in the Texas legislature and then served in the U.S. legislature. I think she started, matter of fact, in the 70s, Jimmy, and started out in the Texas House of Representatives from 1973 to 1977, then the Senate from 1987 to 93, and then from then, Jimmy, until just last year when she retired. So been a public servant for a very long time, but started out, interestingly enough, as a registered.
I didn't know she had passed, Tom.
Yeah, Jimmy. Matter of fact, sadly enough, passed, I believe, on New Year's Eve, the 34th of December.
Okay.
Exactly. I found out, matter of fact, when I was visiting with family and got the sad news. But, you know, all that being said, we want to offer our condolences to her family, her loved ones, and the many lives that she has impacted, Jimmy. And years ago, too many years that I'm willing to admit, she was a keynote speaker at one of our fraternity's MLK scholarship breakfasts years ago. And so she was always open and available to be a servant to the public, always appreciated, and will definitely be sorely missed because obviously she just retired from the Senate because, of course, now Jasmine Crockett is in her space. And unfortunately, Jimmy, not even a year after she retired from Congress.
Okay.
All right, Jimmy, we got a couple of more folks that we do want to acknowledge before we get to our birthdays. The second, not as familiar with, but she is from the Northwest, Colleen McElroy, Jimmy, and this is probably a face that folks from the South End or the Southwest may not particularly be aware of, but she was an inspirational poet and professor at the University of Washington, became the University of Washington's first Black female full-time faculty member in 1969, a long time ago, rose to prominence as a writer in the 1960s, becoming the first Black woman poet of nationally renown from the Pacific Northwest, authored about 16 books and collections of poetry, and just over a six-decade career, changed the lives and the landscape for a lot of folks in academia and mentored hundreds and hundreds of people. So obviously someone who had a great deal of influence for those in academia. So we want to, of course, offer our condolences to her family, friends, and loved ones, and of course, folks in the Northwest and within the literary community. And then finally, Jimmy, someone that is related to someone that most of us know.
Okay.
May not know this face because he wasn't in the film so much, but he was the brother to Gregory Hines, who was a well-noted tap dancer, entertainer, and, you know, also his brother, Gregory Hines, who passed on December the 29th, was a dancer, choreographer, and actor as well. Just lost him a couple of days ago. And so, of course, we want to offer our condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones as well. And so, as we close out those that we've lost in the latter part of December, we ask that folks pray for their family during their time of grievance as they rest in power.
Okay.
All right, now we will transition to our birthdays, Jimmy, this week. For those of you who are starting out the year and have January birthdays, you may share a birthday with the next couple of people. First, we will start out with a face, Jimmy, that you probably know because we're both into football. Jimmy and Derrick Henry, the Bull. You know, he is one of the most dynamic running backs in the NFL, playing for the Tennessee Titans. Also, a former.
He was a beast down in Alabama.
Yes,
I mean,
sir.
I used to watch him when he ran for the 2,000 yards in college. Man, he tough guy to bring down. Man, you don't want to be a safety or a small linebacker when that guy's running at you.
Jimmy, probably one of the more bruising running backs in the NFL historically. Probably you could put him up there with like the likes of Earl Campbell, Christian Okoye, who played with the Kansas City Chiefs. Just big bruising and has speed.
I had hoped that the Cowboys would have drafted him, when he came out of college. But yeah, that guy's a beast, man.
Yep. So his birthday is tomorrow on December the 4th. So happy birthday or early happy birthday to the Derrick Henry family. Next, for those of you who enjoy a little comedy, this face may be familiar. Guy Torre, his birthday is coming up on January the 5th.
That must have been an old picture, Tom. It seemed like I remember him being a little larger, a little bulkier. Like he had bulked up at one point.
Yeah, maybe that picture may be a little bit older, Jimmy, but we have to get the more flattering pictures of not just the women, but the men too.
I understand. we do our best.
All right, Jimmy. And those in the music community may know this face, born on January the 6th, of the year that we probably are not going to acknowledge, but that is the wrong one. There we go. Kathy Sledge of the famed Sister Sledge.
Okay. So, happy birthday, sister.
Absolutely. I mean, just that entire family, Jimmy, can just blow. And she is actually...
They can sing. It's very talented.
Exactly. I think my favorite song from Sister Sledge is I'll Take You There.
Yeah, one of my favorites also.
All right. And our last birthday for this week, as long as I don't have fumbling fingers again, is another comedian, Dion Cole. He has been on a lot of stages, been in quite a few movies, Jimmy, and, is kind of done a little acting as well. So this guy's a very popular face. Matter of fact, Jimmy, I've seen him recently on, I think it's the Old Spice commercials.
Yes, he has become the face of Old Spice. So, hey, anywhere you can get a paycheck, man, whatever works for you.
Yes, sir.
Very, very funny. So if you haven't had a chance to check out his comedy routine, next time that you come across it, you may want to watch it.
Yes, sir. So
he gets 2 thumbs up from Black Men Speak.
Absolutely. We have a couple of folks on our screen chat that we want to acknowledge. Ms. Audrey K. Booker, good evening. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening. And of course, Ms. Marion Square as well. I want to thank you very much for joining us. She said that was the first concert I went to. Let us know who that was in terms of concert. Was that Sister Sledge or was that one of the comedians whose concert you went to? So we will go ahead, Jimmy, now and move forward with our stories. A couple of feel-good stories that we wanted to put out there for a little while. Very interesting, Jimmy. We are Sister Sledge. Gotcha.
Okay.
So, one of these stories, Jimmy, was just a feel-good story. It is a grandmother and granddaughter who are actually in school together. And Jimmy, we talk about education a lot, so we could not miss on this story, Jimmy. But the 101-year-old grandmother by the name of Sarah Simpkins has just re-enrolled back into school so that she could graduate at the same time as her granddaughter. And of course, this beautiful, smiling face here, Jimmy. But it's definitely a great story. She was actually in school, Jimmy, at Allen University in Columbia 80 years ago, and she became pregnant. And so she ended up getting married and ultimately raised 12 children, but had always promised herself that she would try to go back and finish her education. And so at the age of 96 years old, she moved from Brooklyn, New York to Virginia to live with her granddaughter, the young lady who was on the picture, Miss Halima Stafford Crawford. And they are now both enrolled at the Bright Point Community College, and both are set to graduate in May this year. And she's actually studying early childhood education, just had a 3.5 GPA this past semester. So congratulations on that, Jimmy. And I guess the point is we focus on education, and it's never too late.
Tom, it is never too late to get your life on track, no matter what age you are. I mean, the older you are, obviously, there are more obstacles that you have to face, but it is never too late. So there's no excuse, regardless of your situation in life, because we've chronicled so many people who've been down and out and homeless and taken their last and invested in themselves and then grew it from there. And so this is another story, Tom, that of people who are getting their life on track, because the granddaughter she seemed to be about half the age of a grandmama,
Mhm.
and so she's not like an 18-year-old just enrolling in school, matriculating in school. So I'm proud of both of them for having the courage to finish out whatever dreams they have as far as graduating from college. So dittos, and proud of both of them. So great work.
Yeah, Jimmy. And in a day and age, where a lot of folks around the world, Jimmy, would literally, I don't want to say literally cut off an arm, but they would go through a lot just to have an opportunity for a decent education. Here's the story of a grandmother who had to put her educational aspirations off in order to build and support a family, not just children, but grandchildren as well, and has taken the time to finish what she started. I think this is excellent message, not just to folks who are in their senior years in life, but also to young people as well.
Well, Tom, she's not just getting on in her life; she's doing it in grand style. At her age, it's not easy to maintain a 3.5 average and graduate with honors, even when you're 18 years old or 22 years old. So that's a major accomplishment for a lady. Would you say 97 years old?
She's 101. She actually moved at
101.
96 to live with her grandfather, and she is 101 years old now. So she is, I guess, what they call it, a centenarian?
Yes, she's over 100. So for young people in college who think it's hard on them, imagine at 101 years old, a 3.5 grade point average, and get ready to graduate with honors in May. So if she can do it, let her be an inspiration to all you folks out there who think it's hard on you.
Gotcha. All right, we want to acknowledge a couple of other folks who are on the chat line. We have Miss Celia Reese, who has joined.
Still in the
We
house.
want to thank her for joining us. She just said, we talked about Old Spice. She said, should we call it New Spice now that Dion Cole is the face of the brand? And also, of course, we have our good friend, Uncle Asar Kabilan.
Uncle Sar in the house. Okay.
Exactly. And he actually said that the We Are Family album from Sister Sledge was the very first album that he bought with his own money.
All right.
Awesome. Absolutely. All right, Jimmy, let's keep moving. Another feel-good story that, I didn't think about initially, but had to make mention of this, and this is only because we actually were following this young lady, I'll call her young lady, and this story a little bit earlier this year, from who we call the grandmother of Juneteenth, Miss Opal Lee. Had a very great story that I just ran across with her. And as it stands, Jimmy, when she was a very young girl, her and her parents were going to be moving into a new house. And unfortunately, a mob of folks who didn't quite look like her and her family ran her off of her property and literally stole her property. It was in 1939, just 4 days after they had moved into their Fort Worth home. A crowd of 500 people, Jimmy, 500, showed up at the door, destroyed their home, and burned all of their personal possessions. And this was back in 1939. And in fear of their life, of course, the family moved away. Of course, obviously, it's been several years since then. And she recently discovered, Jimmy, that Habitat for Humanity owned the lot on which the land was on at that time, Jimmy. And she reached out to Habitat for Humanity to ask if she could buy the home back because, of course, it had sentimental value. And they actually gifted it to her and built a house for her on this plot of land with, voluntary labor, kind of the things that Habitat for Humanity does. And so, really kudos and hats off to Habitat for Humanity, because obviously they cannot get rid of the pain that her and her family suffered for literally burning down and destroying her home. But she gets some form of justice. I mean, Jimmy, this is close to 80 years after that happened.
Well, Tom, you know what? In that situation, she shouldn't have to ask for her land back. Actually, another option would have been to just do a title search and challenge the transfer of the deed. If her family was run off, then chances are that, and this happened to a lot of Black people around that time, and even there, around that early part of the 1900s, that had land stolen from them, people conspiring with banks to take land away from Black folks. But if there was an illegal transfer of the land, then I would hope that maybe she would have challenged the transfer and got her property back that way, and let that serve as an example to other Black folks who may have found themselves in that situation to get their land back. But I'm glad she got it back. That Habitat for Humanity did the right thing. But if you have family in your history, family history has a similar situation, then just don't walk away from it. It's okay to go ahead and do a title search and challenge the transfer to get property back that belongs to your family.
Yeah, I guess the challenge here, especially during that time in our history, of course, their family, of course, was concerned really more for their life than anything else.
I know they running for their life. 500 people, Tom.
Exactly.
They burned down everything. Oh yes, that's enough to motivate you to just leave.
Right. And
walk away from your property.
Yeah, and there are a lot of folks, and I would probably guarantee that if we had enough conversations within a lot of our families, we might find a lot of situations where folks, their rightful homes were taken away from them because they were African American, because folks didn't want them to live in their neighborhoods and or for other dubious circumstances. And so this is really a drop in the bucket, unfortunately, where someone actually got their land restored.
Not a drop in the bucket, a drop in the ocean.
I would agree.
As far as I'm concerned, because it's happened far too frequently back then, where people got their property stolen from them, and then they didn't have any recourse. They didn't know who to turn to. So
and of course I'm pretty sure that the mortgage companies and insurance companies, they had no recourse. They couldn't be compensated back in those days for what they did, Jimmy. I mean, we know stories, not just back then.
We know the story of Greenwood, how those people had their property burned down, and the insurance companies didn't. Not one insurance company to this day has paid a claim on any of that property. In fact, they claim that these folks burnt their own property down, and they had to rebuild their own money, which they did. And I still wish to this day that some lawsuit, class action could be filed if any of those insurance companies are still around or available, or people who the property got transferred to after the fact could sue to get that wealth back.
And even more recently, there are folks that I'm pretty sure you may know. I know there are some that I know, even as recent as the hurricanes in Louisiana. where a lot of folks lost their homes, and the insurance claimed that the type of insurance that they had on their homes was not adequate.
Yeah, if you had hurricane insurance and it was a flood that tore your house down, if you had flood insurance and it was a hurricane that tore your house down, and, either way, you didn't have the correct insurance, so we don't have to pay.
Gotcha. So this is again a very fortunate incident for Opal Lee and her family, and hopefully it will be passed down from generation to generation, and good things will happen moving forward. So again, we just want to take some time to share some good stories that are happening out there, because there's so much other stuff going on. So again, we wish her the best. She's a pioneer and a trailblazer, and again, for those, everyone should know who Opal Lee is. But at the end of the day, she walked 1,400 miles from Texas, Fort Worth, Texas, to Washington, D.C. to advocate for a holiday in commemoration of Juneteenth, which, of course, is special because, of course, the folks in Texas, I think the last in the Galveston area, were 2 years behind a lot of the other folks who got the message that they were now free. And so, again, good things come to those who are patient and continue to fight the good fight.
Okay, Tom, did you get the commission on the Chandler shout out?
Oh, I did not. Let me go back here. There we go. Okay, we've got a couple of folks on the chat line. We have Brother John Williams, and so we want to thank him for joining us. And we've got Mr. Vincent Stokes. Did we acknowledge the passing of? Yes, we did. We did.
Last week,
former Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. We probably got on a little bit late. And then the commission's on. Yes, we actually talked about the passing of Craig Watkins last weekend, so we spent some time on that. I want to thank you for, of course, reinforcing that. And also thank you. Opal Lee is a founding member of the Trinity Habitat for the Humanity. I did not know that.
okay.
Okay, very good. Very good. So we want to thank everyone for joining us, and that's why we, hey, the more the merrier when it comes to this history. And of course, the commission is one of our local historians as well. All right, let's get on to the next of our stories, Jimmy. This one is something that we were following from last year, Jimmy. We talked about Claudine Gay, who.
Yes, we mentioned her on the show. We did a shout out to her for being the first Black president of Harvard.
And 6 months, Jimmy, afterwards, it looks like she is being forced to resign. Jimmy, we were actually covering this story from the time that she was chosen as president as Harvard, one of the most prestigious, universities in the world, bar none, and came under some fire because of some things that happened on campus regarding an event that was celebrating Palestinian heritage. And unfortunately, there were some folks who.
Okay, Tom, you being kind and you like to tiptoe around the mud rather than just step into it. She didn't come under pressure because of the events on campus. She came under pressure because of those events on campus and she didn't put a stop to it. And then when brought before Congress, the University of Penn and MIT presidents, all women, and were asked about this, she didn't have a proper response. She gave the woke response, Tom. When asked, is the statement from the river to the sea, Palestinian would be free, which really is a reference to eradicating Jews off the land that we call Israel now. And when asked, is there any context, is that correct? And she said, well, it depends on the context. And so what context is eradicating Jews or any group of people okay?
That's fine, Jimmy. And what is, in considering that statement, considering what's happening in the Middle East now, in Gaza, what's the difference? Because it's actually happening.
Tom, the difference is if that statement was, if someone were to make the statement of white people, rednecks, were to make the statement to get rid of all Black people or to get rid of all Latinos, Hispanics.
Well, the issue is
the issue is, Tom, there's no context under which eradicating a group of people
and she
is okay.
That, Jimmy. She
didn't, Tom.
Jimmy,
go back and look at the congressional hearing. That's where she got in trouble, her and the rest of her colleagues, because all three of them, I watched, all three of them gave the same woke answer. that it depends on the context. It depends on the context. And they wouldn't say under what
But what
context.
she did say is that there is no place for hatred. There is no place for
Okay,
that type
then
of
you're the
vitriol.
president of
And
the
she made
oldest
that very clear,
university
Jimmy.
in America. Then it's your job to put a stop to it. And that's the point, is that her and the other college presidents did not put a stop to it. They allowed it
Did
to
not
happen
put a stop to what, Jimmy?
To these groups that were shouting, down to Israel and from the river to the sea, Palestine would be free, knowing that that was a reference to genocide. That was the point, is that there's no place in our society where that's correct.
And you are correct. There is no
So
place.
that's all she had to say, was that this was wrong, and that when I go back to work,
And what
I'm going to
you're
put a
saying
stop
is
to it.
she did not say at any point in time that type of vitriol was there.
No, she and her
You're saying she
she
didn't
and
say
her
that.
other two cohorts never ever condoned it, stopped it, said they were going to put an end to it. They could even come out and just say it was wrong. I mean, you
And what
tiptoe
you're
around it,
saying
you
is,
tiptoe around it,
and what you're
not
saying,
to
Jimmy, and she
offend
never said that
the
there was no place for that type of vitriol on the campus.
Tom. If she
I'm
said it,
sure.
she didn't follow it up with any action. I don't remember her saying
By
there
that
was
time,
no place for it.
by that
She
time, Jimmy,
What she said was,
the event had already happened.
we try to foster an environment of free dialogue, and
Of
so
course.
that was her response, that basically we didn't stop it, and we're not going to stop it, because we try to foster open conversations and free expression, unless you're a conservative Republican, you come on campus, and then that speech has to be shut down. But calling for the eradication of Jews out of Israel, well, that's just free speech, and that we have to allow that, because in the context of an open environment, some free speech has to be accepted. I mean, basically, she was catering to the Palestinian support groups rather than just coming out and saying it was wrong. And if it was wrong, then
So
the next
bottom
step
line is,
was,
what you're saying is her handlers did not prepare her.
Tom, what handler? She's the president.
I understand that, Jimmy, but there are any person, whether you are a president of a university or the president of a United States, there are people, your people
Yes.
who manage what you're saying and are not saying. Look, let's be very clear. It doesn't matter what role you're in. You're not going to be prepared for every situation. So your handlers, and I would, in this case, her handlers, there were some things they did not prepare her for.
First of all, Tom, I think the university, the board, covered for.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that. I mean, that was a catalyst to get it started. I mean, the other piece was the plagiarism piece. But our board, despite those
that's
two,
just finding something, Jimmy. I mean, let's be very clear.
but despite those two infractions, the Harvard board did not force her out.
No,
I mean, they still stood behind her. But my point is, Tom, is that the thing that I find very objectionable is that when we get an opportunity to be in positions of authority, don't lose your common sense over trying to be woke and fit in with white people. I don't know if that was the case, but her answer seemed very close to her two white presidents from UPenn and MIT, who gave the same answers that she gave. Basically, the politically correct, the woke answer. The correct answer, common sense, is there is no place for that type of speech on campus or in America, period. And I'm going to do everything I can to put a stop to it within my authority. I may not be able to shut them down, but I'll see what I can do. And just like with Supreme Court Justice, same thing. When asked what is a woman,
Supreme Court Justice.
I'm sorry.
When you say Supreme Court Justice, which one and what are we talking about?
I'm talking about the Black Supreme Court Justice who just.
Clarence Thomas.
No, come on. You know the I can't think of a name. Johnson, I think is her name. But when asked during her confirmation if what is a woman, we given the woke answer about I don't have a biology degree, so I can't answer. I mean, sometimes we make ourselves look silly doing stuff like this, trying to fit in with the woke folks. And we just need to be authentic and be ourselves. We know what a woman is. We know that type, especially Black people who've had that type of speech directed at us, we know better, Tom. So trying to fit in with the woke crowd to be part of the fraternity, sorority, whatever that little group is, and just discard common sense makes us all look bad. So I have no sympathy for her. And she wasn't forced out of her job. She voluntarily resigned.
Come on, Jimmy. I
What? Who forced her out? The Harvard board was still behind her, Tom.
Come on. I
They
understand that.
redefined plagiarism to make it seem as though what she
Jimmy,
did was not bad, so that she wouldn't come under the heat for it. What more can they do to support her and stand behind her? They did not force her out. She resigned, and she didn't have to. She could have stayed.
Of course, again, back office agreements. At the end of the day, Jimmy, if she would have literally resigned after this, she would have resigned a long time ago.
Tom, okay. Well, I guess we're going to never know because she resigned.
Right.
If she hadn't, I don't think the board was going to fire her.
Because after she had a conversation with the Harvard board, they left that meeting. She came out. She gave her letter of resignation, which means there's some conversation that we don't have privy to, and she found it in her best interest to go ahead and resign.
Well, she may have done it for the best interest of the school because a lot of donations were being cut off,
of course,
several $100 million to the endowment fund. But I think she would have survived if she had stayed. I don't think the Harvard board is going to fire her.
You may be right about that.
The first Black woman president of Harvard fired.
And the shortest tenure, I think 6 months, give or take.
Yeah, they wouldn't have fired her, Tom.
I mean, that's an embarrassment. Yeah. But again, it goes to show, and there's a book called Black Faces in White Places. Clearly, this is an example of that. It's not just the support of that university, the support of your community. It depends on whose guns are bigger. And, at the end of the day, we understand that, most of all of this is driven by economics. So, it's an unfortunate.
I think this is driven by an attempt to fit in and be part of the group. So the group dynamics kicked in here, and it didn't have to be. She could have been authentic. She's a Black person. She understands what the call for genocide against a group of people, being Black and having that done to us historically. So she knows what that's about.
Yeah,
she should have just exercised common sense.
You can't be selective. And this country is very selective as to what they're going to go after and what they're not going to go after. We see that every day.
Selective about what, Tom?
In terms of what narrative. We're talking about a song that was sang by a group, and I definitely get and advocate that there is no space for that. But let's be very clear. When you talk about cultural songs, even
Tom, you just said that, and you telling me she couldn't say the same thing? That there's just no place for it? It's a simple answer. There's no place for
it. And my point is this: her handlers, whoever got her up there, they
handler or no handler, Tom, you didn't need a handler to give the correct answer. But most people don't need a handler to give the correct answer.
You have to, because when you're putting a university and institution at risk, yes, you do.
Okay, so Tom, obviously whoever advised her that was the correct answer that cost them hundreds of millions of dollars to be threatened and loss of endowments that were going to be contributed this year, whoever gave that advice obviously was wrong. Correct. And so, and she didn't have enough sense as president, PhD, doctor, to push back on her handlers to say, you know what, that may not be
it's not about common sense. It's not about common sense. It's not just about common sense. It's about managing risk. And obviously, whoever was responsible for preparing her, she wasn't as prepared as she should have been. And I don't think that we're lost on the fact that given the dynamics of her demographics, that had something to do with it as well. Because I'm quite sure
the fact that the other two college presidents gave the same answer, you don't think the group dynamic had anything to do with it? That maybe she gave the answer trying to fit in to her groups and her peers who were at that level, other female college presidents who are white, to try to fit into the group. And so they all go as a united front in front of Congress and give the same answer. So that's what I think was more at play, not that they were thinking about what was best for the school, because two of those presidents now are gone. The University of Penn president is gone now. The Harvard president is gone. Right. The MIT president is under fire also, so she may be gone sometime this year also. We'll see. But obviously, Tom, whoever handled them and told them that was the best response to go before Congress, not before the boys club, not before some group, but whoever gave you that advice obviously gave you the wrong advice.
That's my point. That is my point. That is my point.
I'm thinking if any other person that come with common sense were to be given that advice in that position, they would have pushed back and said, "No, I'm just not. That's not the answer I'm going to give, and make myself look bad, make the institution look bad."
Well, she probably should have taken. She probably could have and should have taken some notes from some of our former presidents and says, "I prefer not to say anything."
There you go. You can give that. You know what?
If you want to do something presidential,
or you could just refuse the invitation, Tom.
just tell them I have no comment. I have no comment.
The other option would be to refuse the invitation. She was not subpoenaed to appear before Congress. They were invited to come there. Turn the invitation down. Just say no. I don't have time. That wraps it. Move on in life. But, she decided to go and put herself out there in front of Congress, in front of the nation, and gave a really bad answer and came under heat for it and tried to backtrack after the fact by saying what you just said, that no, this is not right, and there's no context in which is correct. But that's not the answer you gave. That's the answer you should have gave when you had the chance. So anyway, Tom, life has consequences. And so she took a gamble. She said what she said, her and her other two cohorts. And so they're paying the price for it. Yeah, so next time it'll be so cute.
Somebody's got to take the fall for it.
Somebody does. Tom, that's true. Mm-hmm. And the person there that's in front of the camera is going to be the person that's going to be in the driver's seat, that's going to take the heat, not the person who gave you the answer, whispering in your ear, telling you what to say, not to alienate or piss off the Palestinian support groups, as if they were the heart of America. And I still don't understand how small groups of people in this country still become the heartbeat of America. The alphabet people,
very clear.
The Palestinian support people.
Very small groups in America.
Very small groups have more say than the rest of us.
Agreed. And that comes down to checks being written too.
It's got to be something, but they can't be writing checks that large to be in control of the politics of America. But somehow it works out that way.
They were writing big enough checks to control what's going on at Harvard. I can tell you that much for sure.
Well, you may be right, Tom.
Making phone calls and writing checks. we found that out at Texas A&M last year as well.
Well, that's true. That's a perfect example. You're right.
Writing checks does matter.
That is true. So you're right about that. So maybe the answer for our freedom for Black people in America is to start making phone calls and writing checks.
Making phone calls, writing letters, and writing. If there's anything, Jimmy, that we need to start doing more of, as opposed to spending our time watching TV, going out and eating fast food, and getting our hair and nails done and smoking cigars, we need to start making phone calls, writing letters like you do, Jimmy, because I know you write plenty of letters.
Yes, I do.
More checks, like real checks. I mean, as opposed to spending thousands of dollars on a doggone, what do we call them? Shoes, some purses.
Oh, man, Jimmy, yeah. Shoes and clothes.
And what do we spend, thousands of dollars on big screen TVs and rims? Bruh, we need to be writing checks to politicians because they are bought and sold. And
they are, Tom.
They are literally bought.
At the local level, a $500 check goes a long way. A $1,000 check goes a long way for local politics. And you'd be surprised if after you've written that check, when you need a favor, need something done, how you can make a phone call, and make things happen. You'll get that money back one way or the other.
Let's have a real conversation. So goes politics, so does the church. Because I can guarantee you that when they look at your role and somebody asks for a favor, whether that's, having a funeral of some sort or calling in a favor on a vote, it's the same in both cases. They look at the roles and who's been writing checks.
Yeah, Tom, that's it. Your staffers are going to go through and look at the campaign book, see what check if you haven't written a check, your request is going to go fall on deaf ears. That request is going in the trash can. You haven't done anything for me, so why should I do anything for you? Especially when resources are limited. Like, let's say, for instance, every senator gets to nominate or recommend 2 people to the military academies. So we have 4 military academies. So that's 8 that you can recommend for your state. And who do you think you're going to give those 8 slots to? My kid, when I haven't given you any money, or a bunch of rich folks who want to get their kids into a military academy who written you big checks.
Truer words have never been said, Jimmy.
So yeah, so phone calls, letters, and let's start writing checks, and maybe we can get some response like these other small groups of people seem to get in consideration. We've been here thinking that our sweat, tears, the blood we've shed, lives we lost meant something or means something as far as a down payment on getting something in return. And now we're starting to see, Tom, it means nothing. And the folks who haven't gone through what our people have gone through seem to be at the front of the line getting everything they want with and I'm still mystified as how they do it and how they jump to the front of the grievance line and getting paid when we still waiting to get some benefit for our grievance.
True. Very true, Jimmy. So you heard it here first. 2024, first show on Black Men Speak 2024. It's an election year. Let's not get it twisted.
What's our next story, Tom?
All right, Jimmy. Next story. We've had a lot of, well, let's just say ongoing issues. We saw an interesting article on a young lady who was assaulted here recently. Another sister who was assaulted while driving her truck, delivering some Christmas presents, Jimmy, for Amazon, and was assaulted by a guy who I guess got pissed off because he was blocking his driveway, and as opposed to, I don't know what the nature of all the conversation was, but he ends up.
Tom, it takes them every bit of 30 seconds to drop that package off, take a picture, and run back to their truck and move on. And surely you can wait 30 seconds to a minute to let that happen. But what state was this in, Tom?
Jimmy, this was, let me verify what state we were looking at.
Is it an open carry state? Because my recommendation is that these prime drivers.
This was in Pennsylvania because it was a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I don't know if that's an open carry state. Fortunately, but they should be allowed time to start packing. I'm sorry. Strap a 45 to your waist and then see if these things continue to happen.
But cell phone, unfortunately, in this case for this young lady, because it would have been her word against his, cell phone, somebody who was in the area got cell phone video coverage of this man, 65-year-old Brian Dingler, who pulled a gun out of his pocket and started pointing it around and ultimately pointed it, at her chin. Young sister.
I hope he goes to jail for a long time.
We'll see. But an Amazon delivery driver who I guess had a route in this neighborhood. The young lady's name is Linquita Schley, but she was, at gunpoint. I guess it's been about a week and a half ago on December 21st. Happened at a suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, who shoved the gun at her several times and ultimately shoved it, at her throat. And, something happened, Jimmy, and she just snapped and pushed the gun away, told the dude he was doing too much, needed to get out of the way. And ultimately, Jimmy, the 65-year-old guy, white gentleman, was charged with simple assault, simple assault.
This is assault with a deadly weapon.
Yes, sir.
How do you get down to simple? Simple is just slapping somebody.
Exactly.
When you point a gun at somebody's throat multiple times, that's assault with a deadly weapon. That's not a simple assault.
Ethnic intimidation, which I've never heard of, and terroristic threats.
Okay, ethnic intimidation is probably a misdemeanor. Tom, these are all misdemeanor charges.
Exactly. But again, anything could have happened. This sister could have been dead. And the only saving grace she had is that somebody videoed it because, they heard some noise outside. And with everything that's going on these days, Jimmy, everybody's a journalist. So she was fortunate that she had somebody to video it. And at the end of the day, there was a situation just last week where a young lady, not assaulted with the weapon, but was being pushed around by an elderly lady. It was a sister again. Was being pushed around by an elderly lady because she was given specific instructions on the Amazon delivery instructions to take it inside, to the person's residence and put it outside the door. And I guess this elderly lady, she, I guess, had some issue with her being in the place and started pushing and shoving on her. And the lady just said, "Ma'am, look, I'm trying to, do my job, so on and so forth. She ended up dropping the box and she ended up leaving the place. But I've seen some other articles, Amazon, UPS, FedEx, it's getting crazy out there.
Well, Tom, I hope in these situations that the local leadership, and this is something Black folks should come together and protest, come together, make phone calls, write letters to the local DA to have those charges upgraded to what they should be. Downgrading these charges to simple misdemeanors is not going to send a message. Either do that or Amazon and all the rest of delivery services start letting these people pack so they can protect themselves. Tom, you shouldn't have to go to work. They don't make that much money doing this to risk their life, put their life on the line, having people assault them when they're just trying to deliver a package.
Doing their job. And, most
just doing their job.
They're not making a lot of money. They're making some extra. This is their side hustle, Jimmy, trying to make some extra money, probably so they can put a few more Christmas presents underneath their tree. And at the end of the day, Jimmy, this could go very wrong because either of these young ladies that we're talking about this week, something could have happened. This young lady could have been shot or killed.
Let all the warriors, Tom, come together and let's put some pressure on the local DA to upgrade these charges if it's not too late. Because we can't have our folks out here, especially our Black women out here being assaulted like this. And it seems like the local authorities are more interested in downgrading charges and letting people off rather than protecting Black women who are just trying to do their job.
Exactly. At the end of the day, they're trying to make a living just like everybody else. Whether they had some words or not, all you have to do, ma'am, sir, can you move your truck? I'm trying to get out of where the case is. But, pulling a gun on somebody, literally threatening somebody's life.
And based on the numbers, Tom, there's a good chance that she's a working mom raising children by herself. I mean, I don't know her situation or her story, but there's a good chance that she's a working mom. And I really feel for her and all the Black women out there who find themselves in these situations. And it just seemed like the government should be your line of defense, and they're doing everything to defend and protect the interests of the person who assaulted you.
Well,
when you downgrade charges like this to simple misdemeanor charges, then they're protecting that person's interest over yours.
Well, you are right in principle, but unfortunately, our government in this country has never protected the bodies of Black women. It's usually the opposite.
Not really, Tom. That is true, unfortunately. So, I mean, which is why we need to, the brothers and the warriors need to come together.
That is our first job, is to protect our
Yes, it is.
Our women.
And I know you can't be out there on the truck with her riding around, but I'm sure there are some men there in that municipality that can make a phone call to the local DA on her behalf and say, this is ridiculous. And if you don't do something about it to show that you're willing to protect her and her interests, that's something worth organizing a protest for. All this other foolishness that we find ourselves protesting, this is something that's worthy of a protest, and somehow we can't get the brothers and the warriors to come together and do it.
True that. And hey, at the end of the day, that's what we have to be about, and I think that helps solve a lot of other issues, that we do have, because unfortunately, Jimmy, we've talked about this on several occasions. A lot of the sisters, in some cases rightfully so, feel that they do not have the protection and the support of the brothers.
They don't, Tom.
We don't have to agree on everything, but one thing we do need to be agreeable on is that we have got to protect our women.
So, Tom, this is another one of those casualties of a social experiment that's going woefully bad, and we don't seem to have any desire to fix it. I took some time off, and I've told you this before, a couple of years ago when I was studying absentee fatherhood. And I thought for certain I was going to find some left-leaning universities out there, some woke folks who were going to say this is a good thing somehow and try to explain it. But, Tom, I didn't find not one paper, conservative, liberal universities, not one that said absentee fatherhood or fathers not being home was a good thing. So that lets me know that everyone knows that this is not a good thing. So if that was the case, all the policies that ran men out of the homes back in the 50s and 60s Why haven't we reversed those policies? This is not a good thing. The academians know this. They've studied this ad nauseum. There are so many thousands of research papers out there saying the same thing. Absentee fatherhood or fathers not in the home is not a good thing. Women trying to do this by yourself is not a good thing. It's not good for women. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your pregnancy. It's not good for your children. All the stats bear out that children of single mothers are 3, 4, 5 times worse than just average kids. And so with that being said, Tom, it's time for fathers and husbands and baby mama daddies, all these folks out here to get back together or be involved in your child's life.
And I think
The
that's
fact that
the
these
key.
women out here having to hustle and try to take care of families by themselves. This young lady, I don't know her situation, but I'd be willing to bet money that she's a working mom and
I
that
have
she's
no
single.
idea. I have no idea down on that, but I would agree with you on the one
Since
thing.
75% of our kids are born unwed mothers, you can put your money on the fact that most of our children are being raised by single mothers. And that needs to stop, Tom.
I would agree.
If you're not going to be there with the mother to help raise a child, then don't lay down with them to make it.
And even if it does happen that the mother and the father are not together in the same household, it is still incumbent upon the father to be in the life of the boy child and or the girl child is absolutely paramount. At the end of the day, in some cases, literally, it means life or death. And to the studies that you talked about in terms of the emotional health, in terms of the likelihood for them to go to jail, in terms of the likelihood for them to be on drugs, all types of dysfunctional things, clearly bearing on the fact that their father is an instrumental part of their life.
If anyone has to take on a part-time job, let the dad take it on, the baby daddy take it on. And so she doesn't have to work a job that puts her life in danger. That would be the right, even if you're not with her, that would be the right thing to do. That would be the honorable thing to do. Even if she's not with you, still provide whatever help she needs to help her maintain where she doesn't have to take on a job like this. So maybe there's another job she can take on that's more safe, that's safer than this. But the fact that she's putting her life on the line and having people put guns on her in the company she works for, I don't think they care, because we had several of these stories where we report the same thing, and Amazon and the rest of them don't seem to be doing anything to protect these people. They don't even change the route. I think one story we told the person requested the route be changed. They wouldn't even do that, Tom.
Correct. That was a young brother that we talked about last year, and they put him back on the same route after he had been shot at. It's
not funny, Tom, but it is kind of funny. Yeah, you chasing, you ducking bullets, and you can't even get your route changed.
Exactly. And matter of fact, I don't know what all the specifics were, but I think Amazon ended up getting rid of the guy. I think it had to do with him accepting or not accepting, a part-time gig or something like that. But at the end of the day, Jimmy, it's kind of a challenge. So, all right, Jimmy, we got a couple more minutes before we are out. There was one short story. Well, I don't want to call it a short story, but one I'll call it a provocative story coming out of the motherland in continental Africa. The president of Burundi, Jimmy, and don't let me slaughter his name, Evariste denounced same-sex marriage and advocated strongly for the stoning of same-sex couples based upon the country's religious grounds. And this is based upon the fact that it's a very conservative a Christian country, Jimmy. And, it's interesting because it has a political slant to it because, as we know, they've been sending Kamala Harris to the African continent advocating for the rights of the LGBT community and or them being more lenient in terms of that community. And the reality of it is Jimmy, that this guy here has kind of woken up some folks, because at the end of the day, he was doing an official statement. And he said, for me, I think that if we find these people in Burundi, they should be taken to stadiums. And this came from a quote, stoned, and doing so would not be a crime, Jimmy. I think same-sex marriage.
I don't advocate for violence.
No.
People love somebody. But the reality is we don't have the right. And Kamala can go over there telling these folks how to run their country, but she won't go over there with a check for the aid that they promised, which they still have not released. Not one penny of that promise has been acted upon,
And,
which
and,
I'm still pissed off about.
and Jimmy, to add to that, from my understanding, Burundi is rejecting any aid money from Western countries that support
Good for them.
LGBTQ rights. So it is a provocative and interesting story. I think that if my understanding is correct, they have laws against, of course, same-sex marriage. In that region of the country, I believe that any same-sex marriages are banned and can be punishable by up to 2 years in jail. But if you look at some of the neighboring countries, Uganda, not too far from that, passed legislation that carries the death sentence for same-sex offenses and jail sentences for some others. Kenya, also in East Africa, just passed a family protection bill where intercourse between people of the same sex is punishable by up to 10 years in jail. So they are not playing at all.
Well, Tom, once again, I'm not for the violence act towards, but these are their laws, their customs, and they're trying to protect their way of life. And homosexuality or same sex love, you can call it whatever you want, doesn't, to them, this is a threat to their culture and their way of life. And so they're protecting their interests the best way they can. And we don't have the right. I'm not even sure why. Just once again, how the hell did alphabet people get their interests to spread their culture and their wishes around the world, become the foreign policy for the United States, that our vice president can go take an African tour, tell an African nation they need to embrace this lifestyle when they have laws in the books that clearly that shows that this is not something we advocate. We don't want that lifestyle in our country. And over and over and over, when it's put to a vote, their parliaments and their governments time passed laws against it. So there's nothing that we can say about it. It's not our concern. If the alphabet people want to go to Africa and fight that battle, let them go fight it. But how in the world did, with a small group of people, dictate our foreign policy towards Africa?
A country of 13 million at that, probably, again, a very poor country in Africa that, we want to go and dictate terms, which is not the emphasis of this article, but it's very provocative given the role that the United States is seeking to police politics.
Well, Tom, here's my response to my government. Go back to Africa with a check in your hand and then give them the check and then advocate that they need to spend at least half that money that you're giving them back with black firms over here in America. So whatever you need, you spend the money with us and black-owned companies here in America. We can give you a list of companies that's certified, that's been regulated, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But that's my position. And so we're a much larger group than alphabet people. We contribute more into the fund than I'm sure that they do. And so if the government wants to have their foreign policy dictated by a group of people in America, then black folks need to come together and say, hey, we need to be at the front of that line when y'all take a request for foreign policy policies and what they're going to be. We want to make sure that, hey, the money that you give come back to us and become a symbolic relationship, a symbiotic relationship between African countries and black-owned companies here in America so we can grow together. But yet the alphabet folks at the top of the list, once again, that their concerns become the top priority for vice president to go over there dictating to other countries on how they should govern themselves and what they should allow with no money in hand to back it up. Because the check that you promised, you never delivered on.
And Jimmy, with about 1 minute left, we have the college football playoff championship.
Oh, man, I was totally wrong, Tom. Jimmy, I don't know if you're throwing it back in my face or what, man, but
hey,
I did not see this coming. I was wrong on both counts.
Jimmy, I was 50% there. I wasn't expecting. I knew Michigan was strong, but to see what was happening on the interior line between Alabama and Michigan, that's unprecedented.
It is, Tom.
That is unprecedented. I've not seen, except for Georgia. Let's be very clear. I think if Georgia and Michigan are in this game, I'm thinking Georgia may have had it, but Nick Saban, I'll give him credit as to what he did against Georgia in the SEC championship. But in this game, I've got to take my hats off to Jim Harbaugh. He did an outstanding job of coaching and preparing his team. And, at the end of the day, it came down to the last series, the last play. And unfortunately, Jimmy, very uncharacteristic for an Alabama team to have issues with a doggone offensive center snapping the ball of
But
all
Tom,
things.
they have a lot of freshmen on that team, and so if you're going to take Alabama down, this is the year to take them down because
Exactly.
they're young. Generally, freshmen don't play on that team. Sophomores have backup roles. You generally have to be a junior, senior to get a starting spot on Alabama. So for them to have freshmen and redshirt freshmen on top of that in key positions, show you how thin they were, and to get to a national championship playoff game with that team. So next year, Tom, those young players are going to be even more skilled than what they were this year. So this was the year to take them now. The A&Ms and the SEC rivals of Alabama, this was your year. So if you didn't get it done this year, you're going to have hell to pay next year.
How they got past Georgia, I have no idea, given how stacked Georgia was. But hey, hats off to Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. They are in the
Yes,
championship.
congratulations to both teams.
And he was very close to getting fired just a couple of years ago. So congratulations.
Rob, he was close to getting fired this year. They were calling for his head.
And then on the other side,
Suspension,
Jimmy,
I
Texas
think, was appealed, and still they're fighting that out in court. The NCAA is still trying to, and I guess by the time it gets settled, it may be a moot issue because the season may be over with.
True, very true.
So,
but and then the Washington Texas game.
I was cheering for Texas, man.
I was pulling for. I'm not gonna lie. I was pulling for Washington, and not because I'm an A&M alum, but that Michael Penix Jr. As great as he is, I still don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. I think he should have won the Heisman. I quite frankly believe he is probably the most NFL-ready quarterback coming out of college. That dude is off the chain.
Yes, Tom. So I was cheering for Texas. I got to go for the local school. In fact, I was hoping for an Alabama-Texas rematch. But
I don't think people would have wanted to see that rematch, Jimmy. They played early in the game.
My people.
I don't think people, because of Texas beat Alabama early in the year. I don't think
last time I checked, people. That would have been a great rematch, man. A revenge game. But both teams deserved to be there. There was no fluke. They legitimately won. So congratulations to both. If I had to give a prediction, I'm going to say I'm going to go with Michigan, Tom.
Jimmy, I think that those with traditional, my head says Michigan, my heart is pulling for Washington at the end of the day, because
you can't be split, Tom. You can't be ambivalent here. So
okay, you're going with Michigan. I'm going to pull up a surprise upset in Washington.
Well, there you go. We'll talk about it next week.
Yeah, because I think that Michigan is a beast, because at the end of the day, they've got a solid defense. They've got a lot of depth. They've got a great run game. That running back is NFL ready.
Yes,
I think probably the weak link, point to point from team to team is going to be the quarterback, because Michael Penix, he covers up for a lot of Washington's defensive flaws. They do not have a great run defense. Their pass defense is somewhat porous. That's the issue. And the only saving grace that they have is that Michigan has somewhat of a conservative offense.
I think Michigan has a size on them also, Tom.
Oh, absolutely.
So I think they're going to push them around. So,
but Washington
size always win championships.
Yeah, the Washington has the number one offense in the country. Michigan has the number one defense. This is going to be a great game.
This is going to be a good game.
And
so everybody go check it out and see which one of us is correct on our football prediction. Tom was halfway right last week. I was totally wrong. So maybe this will give me a chance to redeem myself.
And Jimmy, the college football committee got it right by leaving Florida.
Oh yeah, they got it right.
I'm sorry, Florida State out of it. They just got demolished by Georgia.
So when we expand this playoff, Tom, there shouldn't be any more controversy over who deserves to get in, because, like I said, the top 8 should be easy to pick. Yeah. So when you start getting beyond that, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
So the first 4, 5, or 6, I think you can get right. The last 2 could be a little bit of a challenge, but really, is it really going to matter when the last 2 that get in are playing against the 1 seed and 2 seed in the playoffs? Is it really? No, I'm sorry. It was a 12-team format, right?
Yes, there's going to be a 12-team in the format, I believe.
The first 4 get us a bye.
The 4 team are going to have a bye, and then you're going to have
So in that case, the top eight will be easy to pick. Those last four is not going to matter. 10, 9, 10, 11, and 12 are not going to matter. You can put anybody in there. They're all going to get slaughtered in the first round anyway, or they won't get past the top seed, the first four anyway. So,
Because
but
if
at
we had
least
that,
that in the
if we had
controversy.
if we had a top 8 this year, Jimmy, we're talking Georgia's in the mix,
You're right.
Oregon's in the mix,
Florida's in the mix.
Ohio State's probably in the mix,
Yeah.
Texas, it would have been interesting if it was just 8 this year, but 12 next year.
And we won't have any more controversy about I should have been in and get picked. Because if you're number 13 on the bubble and then get picked at number 12, nobody's going to care, Tom. No one's going to care.
And I think the controversy is going to likely be around the number of teams from like a SEC or maybe a Big Ten conference having, 3 or 4 teams in that top.
The SEC on
That's
12
where the
format,
issue is going to be.
Tom, they're going to get at least 3 teams.
Exactly.
They'll get at least 3.
Gotcha. All right, Jimmy, we
need to call it a night. We're a little bit over time, but that's okay because we're on the show. And everyone, we will see you guys next week. Thank you very much. Please like, subscribe, share. And if you're here watching the show live, invite someone to come watch it with you, so you guys will have something interesting to talk about it and talk about during the week. And so, with that being said, Tom, I'll give you the last word, and we're going to close it out.
Everybody have a good evening. We thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to an exciting 2024. We're going to have our experts in real estate coming next week. So come out with all of your real estate questions, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. Good night.